There is no rich and poor in nature, right? It's really funny to me. And because, I used to be like this when I was a kid. You know, you watch TV, right? And you think to yourself, oh man, if I could become a celebrity, if I could become, famous, and if I had this car and if I had this woman and this much money, I could be happy, right? I could be free. I could have peace of mind. And poor people think, oh man, if I could go to that fancy restaurant, right? Let's pretend you're stone broke. Let's pretend you're living on like food stamps, right? And you got like your little $150 a week food stamps you gotta buy shit with. And you're like, man, if I could eat at Ruth's Chris Steakhouse, or if I could eat at the Red Lobster, I would be so happy. Like that would make me feel so good. And you know what? I probably wouldn't get sick the way I do, because I have to survive on McDonald's, man. If I was eating at like the Red Lobster, man, that shit is probably so good, man. That shit would make me so strong. I would. That's why, man. That's why these rich people are always so ahead of me, man. That's why they keep me down, man. Just they give me all this cheap shit and they got all the expensive shit, and that's how they stay on top, right? That's the mentality of a lot of middle class, lower middle class people, poor people. And what you gotta understand, right, is nature doesn't give a shit about rich or poor. And I'll explain to you what I'm talking about. See, the rich man gets sick just as fast, if not faster, than the poor man does. Because while the poor man can only afford a couple small cheeseburgers at McDonald's, right, a small meat patty, um, and a little drink, the rich man, he can afford that $60 steak at Ruth's Chris Steakhouse, right? He can afford that big ribeye steak, right? That bottle of wine, 2 bottles of wine, 3 bottles of wine, right? So you got to understand, right? The rich man, he can consume way more because he can afford it. Therefore, he actually gets sick faster in many cases. What you got to understand is, whether you're rich or poor, you're both eating the same thing. You're both just eating blood and starch, which are both poisons. Whether it's McDonald's or Outback Steakhouse or KFC or, Ruth's Chris Steakhouse or Red Lobster, you guys are both just eating blood and starch, right? You go to Red Lobster, they give you the lobster, right? Which is so fucking acidic. All right, that seafood is so poisonous, right? As Dr. Sebi said, that seafood rots in your intestines. But you paid $60 for it. So you're like, well, this is expensive. It must be good for me, right? It must be better than those peasants, right? Those cockroaches in the hood eating fucking McDonald's and shit and Wendy's and Church's Chicken. Those fucking peasants, man. I make $100,000 a year. I eat at fucking Red Lobster and Olive Garden and fucking Outback Steakhouse. I'm eating good, god damn it. I'm fucking healthy. You're getting sick at the same rate as those poor people, because it doesn't matter if it's cheap or expensive. It doesn't matter if it's antibiotic free or has fucking hormones injected in it. You live on blood and starch and sugar and alcohol, you're all going to get fucking sick, right? You don't understand the nature of how your body works. You don't understand science. You're all going to get fucking sick. What, you think the dude who smoked cigars in the mansion isn't going to get lung cancer the way the fucking dude in the hood is smoking Newports? Are you fucking retarded? There's only one diet, right? There's only one diet you were meant to follow, right? And if you disobey that, if you go against the cosmic laws of nature and the cosmic laws of the universe, you're going to get punished no matter if you're rich, poor, black, white, whatever. The rich man, right? The rich man, he feels good because he's got a Mercedes and a Rolex and a 6-figure job or a 7-figure job. And he's living the life, right? He's doing what he's doing. He doesn't have a care in the world. He's chasing that money, right? And then one day, when he's in his 40s or 50s or mid 30s, he goes to the hospital for a routine checkup, and the doctor finds cancer or a tumor or some kind of irreversible disease, right? Or a blood disease, or dementia or Alzheimer's, right? Or asthma. And that rich man, right? He doesn't know what to do anymore. He's got the mansion, he's got the Rolex, he's got the Mercedes, but now he's got some bad news. He's been told he's got 6 months to live. He's got a year and a half to live. And he doesn't know what to do, right? And so he panics, and he goes and starts getting his chemotherapy. And in between his chemotherapy sessions, he's still living it up, right? He's still going to the fucking like Red Lobster and shit, and still drinking, still eating his flesh and his starch, right? And then he dies a year later, and he never even had that oh wow moment of there was something I could have done differently, right? He just thinks he's cursed, and that's it, and he dies. And the poor guy, the same thing happens to him. But the difference is the poor man is thinking if he becomes like the rich man, he won't have any of these problems anymore, right? And the rich man, he finally gets there, and then he realizes, oh shit, this money actually doesn't really exist. It doesn't really solve anything. And when he's on his deathbed, it's not gonna fucking save him, right? Because it's not real. It's fiction, When you follow nature, when you understand how food really works, how we are supposed to live, you realize that there is no class system. There is no superiority. There is no elite. There is no superior race, right? None of that fucking matters. Nature doesn't give a shit about any of that. That's just man-made. That's just ego-driven, right? You got to understand, a man had to be egotistical to even decide he's going to create something like a steakhouse, like, oh, we're going to get all these cows and we're going to cut them up and serve them, and we're going to make a shitload of money. And you know what? We think it's good for them. We don't really know if it's good, but we think it's good, and we like making the money, so we're just going to do that, Just let the doctor who's like, oh, we're going to create these pills because that dude who created that steak, some of those people are getting sick from it, but we don't really know if they're getting sick from it, but we're going to create these pills, and we don't really know what they do, but sometimes they work. And yeah, they might cause side effects, but they don't always cause side effects. So we're just going to keep pushing this, and we're going to make a lot of money off this. And we can wear this title. I have the title of doctor, so I must be doing the right thing, right? Because they gave me a certificate. So what I'm doing must be good for humanity. But nature doesn't give a fuck about your certificates, right? There is what's good for you and what's bad for you. And everything in between is just what man makes to justify his egotistical pursuits, right? But you gotta understand, there's no rich and poor in nature. Your materials aren't gonna fucking save you, and you can either just get with the program and do what's actually nature intended for you, or you can suffer. And there's no cheat codes. There's no ways out of it. Believe me, I've tried to find ways to incorporate that delicious junk food and not get sick or not develop something, and it never works in the long term. So that's just some food for thought. When you're feeling inferior to someone or you're feeling superior to someone, remember that you're most likely both poisoning yourselves at the same rate. So it's really just an illusion at the end of the day of success or status or, superiority. Nature doesn't give a shit about any of that.